In this video, we are going to discuss how you can score better in your CS exams by using the legal maxims in your answers. The legal maxim that we have chosen for today is ultra vires. What does ultra vires mean? Let's have a look at it. Ultra vires literally means beyond the powers, or in simple terms, you can say lack of power. So any act which you do not have the power or authority to do, but you still do so, will be an ultra vires act. So an act is ultra vires if it is beyond the scope, beyond the authority, or beyond the legal powers of the person doing it. Therefore, if an authority does not have a power to do a particular act, but it still goes ahead and does the same, the act will be deemed to be ultra vires. So, any authority which carries on any activity which it does not have the power to do so is ultra vires. It simply means that any act which you do not have the power to do, you cannot do so. An authority can exercise only so much power as it is conferred on it by law. The term ultra vires points the capacity or the power of the person to do the act. So, ultimately, to determine whether an act is ultra vires or not is completely dependent upon the capacity and the powers that have been vested on that particular authority. So, if you have the capacity to do it, it is valid. However, if you do not have the capacity or the power to undertake certain activity, then such activity, if done, will be ultra vires. An ultra vires doctrine typically applies to a corporate body like a limited company, government department, local council, so that any act done by the body which is beyond its capacity to act will be considered as void. So, any activity which is beyond the capacity cannot be undertaken, and if it is undertaken, it will automatically be considered as void. The origin is Latin. Ultra means beyond, and vires means power. So, anything that is beyond the powers is void, and that is known as doctrine of ultra vires. Let's have a look at certain examples for better understanding of the concept. An act of the company must not be beyond the object clause. Otherwise, it will be ultra vires and therefore void, and cannot be ratified even if all the members wish to ratify. So, as all of you know, that a company is governed by the MOA, which contains the object clause, and company can undertake only those activities which are mentioned in the object clause of the MOA. If a company undertakes any activity which is not mentioned in the object clause, it is ultra vires and therefore void. So even if all the members of the company and the directors say that we are okay with carrying on such objects of the company, even then it cannot be considered as valid, because unless and until that particular activity is not included by amending the MOA into its object clause, till it is not amended, such activity cannot be considered to be valid. So, for a company to be carrying on the activities which are not mentioned in the object clause is always ultra vires and void. If a company wishes to expand its objects, it is important that it amends its MOA object clause and then incorporate those objectives in its object clause and then carry on such activities. Any object that is not mentioned in the MOA, the company cannot undertake. So this is an example of ultra vires act. Let's have a look at example number 2, which is an example from Constitution of India. When the center or the state government passes any legislation that it does not have the authority to pass under the 7th schedule of the Constitution, it is an ultra vires act. So as you know, seventh schedule of the Constitution is divided into three lists. The list 1 is the union list 2 is the state list, and list 3 is the concurrent list. So the matters which are enumerated under list 1, that is the union list, only the union or the center can frame laws on the matters mentioned therein. Similarly, in list 2, the matters that are mentioned or enumerated are subject to of the state government, and list 3 is the concurrent list where both the center and the state can pass the legislations. So in case the state government passes any legislation which belongs to the matters which are enumerated under list 1, then such an act will be automatically ultra vires and not valid, because the state government does not have the authority to deal with any of the matters which are mentioned under the union list. So, for the governments to be able to pass a valid legislation, it is important that it has the authority to pass it, and whether it has the authority or not will be determined under the 7th schedule, that is list 1, 2 and 3, which are specifically provided. So if any of the government passes any legislation which is outside the purview of their own list, it will be deemed to be an ultra vires act. Let's move forward and look at example number 3. This is an example from administrative law. So if the subordinate or the delegated legislation made by the delegate is in excess of the power conferred by the enabling act, or is in conflict with the provisions of the enabling act, or is made without following the procedure which is required to be followed in the enabling act, then such a delegate or subordinate legislation will be invalid on the ground that it is ultra vires the enabling act. So, whenever there is a parent act and it allows for the formation of a subordinate legislation or a delegate legislation, such delegate legislation should always be in compliance with the parent act. So, the subordinate legislation cannot have excess power, they cannot be conflicting with the provisions of the enabling act, and also they have to follow the procedure which is mentioned in the enabling act. So if in any case the subordinate legislature does not abide by the parent act, then such subordinate act will be ultra vires the enabling act, because the subordinate legislation does not have the authority, does not have the powers to do so which it has done. So in this case, the subordinate legislation will be ultra vires the enabling or parent act. So this is the concept of ultra vires, that is exercising anything which is beyond the powers will be void and therefore will be treated as an ultra vires act. So it means any activity which you do when you do not have the power to do so will be void and ultra vires. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can check for the other legal maxims in the description below. And yeah, please let us know in the comments box if you understood the legal maxim. See you in the next video with another legal maxim.